Live. So, Benjamin, I was telling you, I was in Italy, and I got two meetings that was really crazy for me. One was on a taxi, and one was a guy who stopped me in the street. I have some following in Italy, so sometimes people stop me for, a selfie or say hi. And the taxi driver, I told you, he was talking about his crypto investments and asking me for advice. And I say, man, I don't know. I mean, I was really surprised that the taxi driver was into crypto. And the other guy who stopped me in Rome, I thought, okay, he want the classic selfie. No, he said, so what do you think? We're doing some interesting NFT projects here, and I would like to have your opinion. And I thought, am I in a parallel universe? I'm already in the Metaverse, maybe? Is that a matrix? What's going on? So that was incredible for me. And I don't know if it's something that happens to you often, but it's probably a signal that something is happening.
UP Hour Speciale Crypto è organizzato da UP Gang e Marco Montemagno in collaborazione con Leontech. Con una diversificata gamma di oltre 800 certificati quotati in Italia, Leontech offre soluzioni di investimento adatte ad ogni risparmiatore. Visita il sito certificati.leontech.com, esplora un universo di prodotti e seleziona quelli più adatti alle tue esigenze. Leontech, tecnologia ed innovazione al servizio del tuo portafoglio.
Yeah, totally. I think we're at the tipping point, right before the tipping point of a very, very significant revolution. Perhaps one of the most important innovations and technologies since the invention of the internet is now live and enables people from all around the world to essentially participate in an economy in a way that they never could before. And this I think has to do with two elements. So this idea called Web3, enabled by blockchain technologies, is the idea that whereas in the Web2, where the entire internet is essentially owned by 4 or 5 large corporations, and people are just there sharing their data and information and so forth. In Web3, you have the internet owned by users and builders, orchestrated with tokens. So this idea that people from all over the world can own a piece of the internet is exhilarating.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
when people discover something like this, they want to dig deeper. And of course, you'll have many projects attempting to create something more useful, more interesting. But if you look at it from let's say macro overview, it seems like this may well be the most important opportunity of our generation, both in impact and in economic upside. And we can basically dive in a few things. So what blockchains do and where are we on this time frame? What is Web3 and some of its implications, NFTs, Metaverse, and DeFi, for instance, and maybe how Elrond ties into all of this.
But that I think that's the main point. Help us to understand what Elrond is doing for people who are maybe not aware of the project, and what also the difference if people say, other blockchains, there is Ethereum, there are different ones. So why Elrond is different?
Sure. The goal of Elrond is to create the backbone for a high bandwidth, low latency, and transparent financial system, and then give anyone, anywhere easy access to this financial system. And the basic idea is essentially this. We currently have a financial system that is based on outdated technology and essentially perverse incentives. So there's a lot of inefficiency, both in developed countries and in developing countries. And then the second problem that ties immediately to this is that we still have more than 1.7 billion people around the world that essentially have no access to financial infrastructure. So what we're doing with Elrond is essentially focused on two things. We've built a blockchain architecture that is 1,000 times more advanced in terms of throughput, execution speed, and transaction cost compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum. What this means is essentially, if in Bitcoin you can process something like 7 transactions per second, and in Ethereum you can process something like 15 transactions per second, in Elrond right now we can process more than 15,000, and we can essentially process more than hundreds of thousands, because this is an essentially scalable architecture. And then the second element tying to this is a super wallet that we're creating that essentially simplifies the entire interaction with this technology, so that users don't have to learn rocket science. Because as cool as the technology is, if you have to learn rocket science to use it, then essentially you'll only have 5-10 people that know what the technology does and use it and so forth. But our core insight and the reason why we're pushing as hard as possible is the idea that if we can bring the next billion people in the blockchain space by simplifying experience and solving the performance problem, we're going to have a very similar moment to that of, on the one hand, the transition from dial-up to broadband in performance in the early days of the internet, and that of the web browser, where essentially everyone in the world could start playing a bit with the technology, exploring and so forth. So this is extremely exciting, and this is why Elrond is uniquely positioned to enable all this revolution.
You mentioned the ease of use and the simplicity. That is very important. And I give you this example. I think the other day I said, all right, what do we need to do if we want to add Michael Saylor style MicroStrategy, some of the balance sheet of the UK LTD company, one LTD company? We want to add some money, get Bitcoin as a store value. That's it. Well, I mean, in theory, it's easy. The truth is that everything is built to make it kind of difficult. It's not impossible. It's just difficult. I mean, you need an exchange company, business/enterprise corporate account. Then you need to do the KYC. Then you need to move the money from a traditional bank that doesn't like to move the money into exchanges. You have to move the money. I mean, and then the accountant call you and say, well, but now what is it? Is it capital gain? And you say, no, we just want to move, percentage of the money. So everything is built in a way that is not so easy. And the same with NFT, easy to buy NFT. Then you try to buy an NFT and connect with MetaMask, and people say, what? Meta what? I have PayPal. So it's at the moment, we are just at the beginning, I think. And we need more tools that make it easier. What do you think?
This is precisely the case. So if you look at things, again, zooming out, you see that there's this tremendous opportunity that, philosophically speaking or technologically speaking, is quite clear. But then the question is, why are we not there yet? Why is blockchain technology not everywhere adopted already? And what's taking so long? And I think there are two important problems here that need to be addressed in order for us to see the kind of adoption that speaks to some of the challenges that you've just described. One of the challenges is a performance challenge. Can we accommodate internet scale performance? Can we really bring businesses and startups on top of the blockchain? And can the blockchain handle this? And here, Elrond is perhaps the most advanced architecture in terms of performance that really brings a new kind of level of performance and processing capacity. And then the second element that I think the next period will be about is simplicity. I mean,
Mm.
you can never go simple enough um, with the current phase we are at. And to the extent that we'll be able to simplify things completely so that owning an NFT, exchanging some money, sending it to any friends we have around the world, without thinking about it, just as we send an SMS or just as we send an email, to that extent, blockchain will be everywhere. So this is why Maiar, as this super wallet that we've created, is essentially just a way that enables you very simply to interact with cryptos, with NFTs, and with DeFi. And it's not simple at first to build these technologies, but if you think about it, at its best, the next layer of finance will be just people being able to exchange money or send money anywhere in the world in an instant at a fraction of a cost that we are paying right now. And if you can do this, on top of this, you can do almost everything else that you're thinking about. And this is what we're trying to make come true.
Got it. You've been talking about the metaverse before, and for people listening to our conversation that maybe are not aware, recently Mark Zuckerberg changed the name of the company, the holding company, not the product, from Facebook to Meta, obviously with a lot of critics and people say, no, but in this language it means very bad things. I mean, imagine how difficult it is to change the name of a company. I mean, he could have called it Mark and that's it, and then would have been maybe easier. But the topic that maybe most of the people missed was that the change is because Facebook is not focused anymore only on social media, but they have virtual reality, they have Oculus, they have the hardware, they launched their glasses, and they are into this metaverse. They are a metaverse first company now. And it sounds interesting, but no one understands exactly what this metaverse is. So help us to understand what is the big picture that not only Facebook, but a lot of big tech have at the moment.
Sure. The idea with the metaverse is that it can be several things, but it's something extremely fundamental. You can see the simplest version of a metaverse would be a virtual space that you can create anything into. So whether you just want to recreate different parts of the world and give them rules and define those rules and play games in it and so forth, this can be a metaverse. On the other hand, you can move one step closer to where we are right now, and it's very likely that metaverse will be something like a moment when the digital versions of our identity and realities will start to become more valuable than the real life assets and realities that we're built. And this is extremely fundamental if you think about it. And then to go to the extreme, a metaverse at its best is just the simulation that we're living in.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it and assuming any type of growth in terms of computational power and efficiency, video graphics efficiency, and so forth, assuming any type of growth, the idea is that at some point we reach a point where the digital realities become indistinguishable from the real reality. So
that, let's say that the extreme version of the metaverse is a sort of matrix that where we live our digital life, sort of.
Yes, and it's the greatest part of the metaverse is that it's open-ended, that we can shape it in whatever way we believe is fit, but it will very much involve probably the most creative most brilliant artists and smartest technical people from around the world, just because you can easily play God in a metaverse. You can easily create new societies, build new cities, build new countries, and experiment with things that you never could in reality, or it could cost too much. And so if enough value is built there, then people start to come there and live part of their lives or have fun or stuff like that. And what's changing right now, I think, from maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago, is the fact that for the first time, digital assets, like real assets, are moving to be digital assets. And the digital assets, the crypto stuff that we have with the blockchain, is creating so much value in the digital world that this very much will be like a metaverse that becomes much more valuable for people in today's world. So I would expect that most people today, young people especially, will be able to earn hundreds of or thousands of times more money in the metaverse than they can earn in real life at this point,
Right.
which is
Right.
going to be surprising.
And Benjamin, why the metaverse, which sounds very virtual reality and augmented reality heavy, so focus on that. Why and where will meet blockchain and the crypto world and the NFTs? Well, where is the meeting point between these two technologies?
Sure. So the idea with blockchain is that you can see blockchain in a sense like virtual computers. Virtual computers that have different primitives. They enable you to transfer money without the need for trusted third parties, so in automated fashions and so forth. But given that they're virtual computers, they enable you to encode digital property in a way that is unforgeable. Just as when you started to have the laws in the real world that granted you property that cannot be taken away, and then you had an explosion in the economic sense as a function of being able to own land, own some property, and so forth. We're just rediscovering this idea in the digital world, because up until this point, we could not really own anything in the digital world other than, let's say, domain names, which were owned by us and so forth. And now through the blockchain, we can own stuff. And then the next step is, how do we own it? Well, it's through tokens. That is fungible tokens, which is essentially money or any token that can be exchanged with another token. This is a fungible token. And then non-fungible tokens are unique tokens that can never be exchanged with a different token equally. So the idea that you can, through tokens, basically own a part of the internet is very simple, but extremely powerful. And then extending this to the metaverse is just that in the metaverse, up until this point, you could play around, build some stuff, but you could not capture the value. The game designers would capture the value, and the companies that design the games capture the value. But now, for the first time, you can create a game and enable everyone within the game to have rights to build their stuff, own them, exchange them for value, and so forth. And this opens a new phase for the metaverse. And it's why everyone is extremely, extremely excited about it at this point.
So to give an example, I can create my, I don't know, video game. I create wigs, only people, and then I can sell my hair, my digital hair, and I can get money out of it, or can become something that is certified, that is a unique piece of digital art, or as a specific utility. So, but you think that is only in video games, or as some repercussions for brands, for creators?
Yeah. I think this will probably be the most important revolution for artists um, we've seen in history, because just like tech startups were for coders, NFTs are for artists all over the world, or creators all over the world. It essentially gives you a better expression, a better means of connecting with your community, of sharing ideas and economic value with your community, and takes away the intermediaries that would otherwise like cut you through, whether you're a musician, whether you're a writer, a painter, or a digital artist in or creator in whatever way. NFTs give you the ultimate way, the simplest way to connect with your community, share value with your community, and this is why they're super powerful. It goes well beyond the metaverse. It like this is why at first, when you have powerful technologies, people try to replicate what they have in real life.
Yeah.
So first, you want to replicate what you think you've seen before, and you want to move the old artists to the new digital space, and you think this will be the biggest market. But when the new technologies come, a new market emerges, completely new, something that you never thought would exist, and so forth. Of course, the old artists also find their way and always create new ways for them to express their value. But yeah, it seems like we're at this unique point when, due to crypto, blockchains, and NFTs and DeFi and so forth, we're seeing several parts of the economy just being absorbed to the digital world, and then new people starting to play with it.
When I talk with someone, with a taxi driver or with anyone about this topic, at this point of the conversation, I always arrive a couple of critics. First one is, yes, but the regulation. So they will ban the technology. Governments will never allow this or that. So this is one main issue. And the other issue is climate. So are these technologies sustainable? These blockchains are very environmental unfriendly. These are the main critics that I receive. How do you answer to that?
2 points here. The great part is that Elrond, for instance, is one of the first blockchains that is fully carbon negative. I mean, not only carbon neutral, but carbon negative.
Right.
It's roughly 36,000 times more efficient than Bitcoin, and about 12,000 times more efficient than Ethereum. But going even beyond that, we've offset everything and went beyond that, so that you can create tokens, you can create NFTs and so forth, and know for certain that they are carbon negative. This
Right.
is a great important
Wow.
step.
Incredible. How did you achieve that?
Well, there are some clear ways that you can, for instance, calculate how much you have, what carbon footprint you have. You can offset that in several ways, and starting to do that as fast as possible, especially as a blockchain, it's great. This is the last step, and the first step actually was the most difficult: creating an architecture from scratch that has moved away from proof of work and has built on proof of stake, which is this very different idea where you don't have to have an arms race of computational resources so that people get faster and faster computers, because otherwise they cannot earn any money in, for instance, Bitcoin.
Right.
The good news is we've seen a tremendous change even in the Bitcoin space and in the Ethereum space. So everyone is moving toward proof of stake on the one hand, and then people are moving even beyond that to offset their carbon footprint. And to your first question, the idea with regulation is that we've seen several moments throughout history when new and important technologies have come, and we know that regulation usually comes after the technology. The smartest countries will never try to regulate to death a technology that they see will bring a lot of value to the entire economy. Because again, if we think about it fundamentally, everyone, any government, any central bank, any commercial bank, or any user from around the world will want services or a world in which they can transfer money in an instant with a trivial cost anywhere in the world. Like this is of no discussion. And then the question is, how do you do it in a way that's compliant, that is not getting into fights, unnecessary fights with the governments or with the central bank? And here we're very proactive, engaging in all kinds of conversations with the different governments and central banks and commercial banks. And we always like to underscore that this is not a zero-sum game. It's not like someone stealing from someone else and this is why we have to fight. This is the smallest version of what people see right now. The most important thing to realize is that here we're building something from scratch, from zero. It's like we're creating a new universe that will create more value for the different countries, more value for the governments, for the central banks, but it's still up to them to open the eyes, start exploring, start learning about the technology, and we're quite happy and excited to have these conversations with them.
Also, I think that when people think about regulation, they probably confuse crypto as a unique object, when crypto is like saying internet. What are we talking
Exactly.
about? Are we talking about e-commerce? Are we talking about dating apps? What are we talking about? So I think that we already have some answers. For instance, Bitcoin ETF has been approved in US. The SEC say will not ban Bitcoin. So I mean, there are already a lot of indications. And on the other side, projects that are not good, scams, they will be hopefully
Sure.
devastated by regulation, and it is a good thing. So like internet at the beginning, I think.
Yeah, and two things I would note here. First, we're at a point where, if you think about it, even the internet has been questioned at the beginning. And it's funny to think that anyone in their right mind would say that the internet is just a fad and it will disappear in a few years and so forth. And there are a lot of famous people which have not seen this trajectory at its inception. And then on the other hand, we're now at the point with blockchain technology where all the most important investors in the world, they're in. All the most important universities, they're in. All the most important governments are researching and looking very closely. All the most important banks, startups, businesses, and so forth. It's not a discussion anymore whether this is for real or not. It's only a discussion of what's the opportunity for us? How can we create something, benefit, and help this entire evolution to move in the maybe fastest and most productive way for the entire society?
I found, Benjamin, an old article on the biggest Italian newspaper. It was like a 1995 or 1997 article, and the title was "Internet is over. 95% of websites are basically not, they don't get any visitors, and the rest is porn." Basically, that was, the statement. It's over. It's done, guys. It's over. And it's crazy when you go back and you think, wow. I mean, but in that moment, I mean, yeah, probably it was right. It's difficult to predict and to have a complete vision of a phenomenon, but I would say that in this moment, we are the crypto ecosystem is so huge, it's so big that it's very difficult to. Everything is possible, but imagining that everything will be shut down and go to zero, and we go back, in the old ways, I think is basically impossible. Also because I don't know what you think about it, but if I think about relationship that, for instance, people have with their own banks, it's not a happy relationship. We're not talking about going back to a great, fantastic relationship with your bank and you say, wow, that's great. No, you're not happy. So it's kind of easy. You're not going back to, you love Marvel and you watch the Marvel movies and you think, oh gosh, I really would love to go back watching those movies. No, it's a horror movie. So it's kind of easy if you have a better alternative that is cheaper, faster. I mean, come on. So I think people should be more fact-based when they think about these topics.
And again, two things that always help put things in perspective are, one, that technologies cannot achieve mass adoption overnight. Like any fundamental technology, however good it is, requires time, requires understanding, requires effort, requires a lot of iterations until it reaches mass adoption. And so if you think about it, we're very likely in a moment similar to the 96, 97 moment in the early internet era, where we're at this point probably something like 100 to 200 million people in the blockchain space, and we're 8 billion people around the world. Now think of how large and massive this opportunity is. How many people are not even aware that this is what it is? How many people are not even aware about the implications for money, for banking, for artists, for tech people, and so forth, and how large the ramifications are. This is why a lot of the discussion right now is about a super cycle. That is an opportunity that is outweighs all the other opportunities that people have seen just because of this fundamental breakthrough in technology. And the fact that you mentioned meeting with people on the street and them being so excited suggests that this technology spreads very, very differently than the normal technologies. Like people discovered that for the first time, they can own part of the internet. How cool and insane is that? I mean, anyone would want something like that, right?
Also because internet at the beginning, the promise was for a new way of connecting and going out of traditional media and control and monopoly and so on. And then somehow we moved back with 5-7 companies that control social media, commerce. So if you lived the internet at the beginning, it was a different vibe, and it's the same vibe that you find in crypto today. So I think that's very interesting. I wonder how countries will play this game, not only financially, but for instance, I told you I went to Italy on holidays, and I thought how Italy could leverage NFTs, for instance, to promote the Made in Italy brand. We have so many companies and incredible skills in different sectors, and they are often unknown, So I was thinking, I don't know, I was thinking if it's probably possible for countries to think about a strategy also for this.
100%. I mean, this is the right kind of question that is extremely productive to think about, whether people are like government officials, central bank officials, business officials, or startups, builders of any kind. This, I think, is the most important question. How can I create something or benefit of this technology? Because when I move toward this part, things become like the right and relevant things become very clear, and the irrelevant things disappear. And two or three points I would mention regarding this. Generally, I think we'll see two different games played at a grand geopolitical scale. First, a kind of Mexican standoff, where most of the relevant countries pretend this sort of does not exist, or it's irrelevant or overstated as value and so forth. And then all of a sudden, things will shift to an arms race. Like there's a point at which when the first, one of the largest countries in the world, or one of the most productive, economically powerful countries in the world makes a move, at that point, you don't have a way of saying no anymore. It's just about how fast can I move to have a space in this digital world, to play a role in this digital world. And then the second element is, in the next 3 to 5 years, I believe we're going to see several crypto networks, and among them Elrond as well, that will outweigh the GDP of the different countries they were founded in, which is
insane.
going to change a lot of things, right? Societally, people will start earning their money on the internet, living their life on the internet in different virtual spaces and having fun and so forth. And it will create a lot of opportunities. Of course, we should be very careful not to reach a Ready Player One world, where we're only living in a sort of dystopian version of the future and so forth. But the opportunities are there, and the countries that think about it, like Italy and other countries in Europe and Romania and so forth, have an opportunity that is extremely unique. And the more they look into it, the more they can bring a lot of value to the citizens of those countries.
What would you do if you were in Italy, who is Draghi, the prime minister, or if you are Boris Johnson in UK? What would you do? I would buy probably like 10 billion Bitcoin. And if he plays well, you repay the public debt, and that's it, kind of easy. Anyway, you throw away 10 billions, I mean, easily, if you are a country like Italy or another country. So, no, what would you do? If they call you and say, look, we need a strategy, what are we going to do with this NFT, crypto, everything?
This is again a very good question. The idea is, I think, to do several things. One of the simplest would indeed be to take a large chunk of money that is like out of the budgets that you have, 1, 2, 3%. This is nothing in the grand scheme of things, but would give you an edge that could be insane for the population, for that particular country. So having a portfolio with exposure for as a first step, that's great. Second, creating a regulation so that the smartest people in the world that are building these things come in your country. Start creating things in your country, start sharing them in the education system, in the startup system, and investment sector is, again, extremely important, because it means that you'll have a lot of spillover effects in all the parts that you see around the tech sector and economy. And then third, what's the most ambitious thing perhaps is build a version of a blockchain network that is extremely advanced. And if that succeeds, that in the next period, it will overtake the GDP of your country as a network. It will give the people a new type of future that they can be part of, they can explore, experiment with. And it's not an either or value proposition. So you still improve many things, but it's almost like with blockchains, you have a cheat, a hack that does not happen usually in real life, that you get the resources to solve then all the other problems. Then you can ask, if resources are not a problem, what's the most pressing problem I want to solve? And this is why resources are the most important problem first, because then you can afford to spend on the other problems as well.
One thing that I don't understand, Benjamin, help me to make up my mind, is the blockchains. How many blockchains will survive? Because if I think about internet protocols, HTTP is one protocol. And you don't have like millions of protocols. I mean, for that job is the protocol that we use, or FTP, or I don't know. So how does it work with blockchains? You imagine that we'll have thousands of different blockchains, will be one blockchain, will be a blockchain for every specific sector. How does it work?
This is important to think about, and there are several, let's say, schools of thought or approaches here. One, which I think is very simplistic and the least interesting, is that for some reason just one blockchain takes off, all of a sudden die off, and it's not clear why that one in a single fashion would take off and why the other ones would die off. On the other hand, if you zoom out and look over the longer term, it's clear that you have several use cases that you want to optimize for, and not all use cases are equal. Not all use cases require the same architecture. And the parallel to the internet would be that here in the internet, you had several protocols for different use cases. You had SMTP for email, and then you had some other services that were built on different other protocols. Of course, you could say that we're going to have the internet of value, and the internet of value, in the grand scheme of things, should be built on one blockchain, or maybe a better way of looking at it is having a kind of meta chain that connects all the blockchains or enables you to interact with the other blockchains. Because if you have interoperability across the ecosystem, then it's very, very simple. What I would say, on the other hand, and I do think will be extremely important, is blockchains that have no value, that have not created any kind of innovation and are just there trying to, let's say, pretend that they brought something, but there's no real substance to it. Those will disappear. It's very simple. To the extent that the community discovers the reality, they will move forward. On the other hand, fundamental breakthroughs that will enable people to essentially move money, as I said, in an instant, anywhere in the world at a trivial cost, and then be able to have NFTs and DeFi and so forth, which are just applications of the same principles. That blockchain that succeeds in doing this will take a lot of the great opportunity that we see ahead. And here, this is one of the elements. This is why we've built Elrond, and we've spent so much time in bringing this breakthrough to market. But then on the other hand, the second most important thing that's crucial is, what adoption do we have? Because at the end of the day, the entire market cap is only a function of number of users. If this is the entire market we have, then it's a small market. Like, this is everything we have. This is why the question is, how will we be able to bring the new users in? What new services that are super exciting, super compelling, that bring us new relationships to, as you said, our money, our assets, our time. And if they bring us, will we see a rapid adoption unlike anything we've seen in the world before? I think this is very likely, and this is why we've spent a lot of energy in Elrond, not only on the performance problem, but the UX problem. Because if we can create it, like simplify the entire interaction, at that point we can speak the language of the normal user, the user on the street, and the average internet user. And this is where the largest opportunity is.
How many people are working at the moment on Elrond, and how many developers? I give it for granted, but maybe people don't know.
So I think a few metrics that are important to have in mind is Elrond can scale. Elrond is built on two important breakthroughs. One is adaptive state sharding, and it's this idea that you can, instead of processing transactions in a serialized manner, you can divide and conquer. So you take a network, split it into several networks, you can parallelize transaction processing, and as an effect, you can, of course, process dramatically more than any other network. And so the second breakthrough is secure proof of stake. Just as we said, efficiency, computational efficiency, and security are part of it. And then we have 3,200 nodes distributed around the world that sustain and maintain the security of the network. Those nodes are essentially rewarded for the security they provide on the network with the eGold native token. And we have, even in the Mara application, about 500,000 users. We have around 800,000 accounts within the network at this point, and around 80 people in the team, and a few thousands of people contributing from around the world, whether it's developers, community, and so forth, and a few hundreds of thousands that are contributing again within the community with different aspects. So it's absolutely fascinating how early we are, how large the opportunity is, and this also gives us the, let's say, fire to push as hard as possible and bring even more users in and services for them.
We went super long with our chat, but it was so interesting. And I have a final topic that I wanted to touch with you, which is automotive and blockchain, because I know that you were doing something interesting there, a partnership.
Yes. So the idea is, again, blockchain enables transactions that can happen automatically between machines. So this is fundamental for autonomous vehicles. Autonomous vehicles, if you think about them, like your car will drive from home, go and charge itself. It will need to pay automatically and then move to the next step. Now, in order to do this securely and efficiently, you can use blockchains. And this is insanely more efficient and secure than anything we've had before. So this is one element. And then the second element is, of course, our discussion with Holoride, which combines this idea of a blockchain and the metaverse, and says, what if instead of wasting your time in a car or a vehicle of any kind when you have a long drive, what if you would just put some goggles on and would start exploring the world, would start playing with your friends, meeting with them in the metaverse, maybe working something, maybe creating some value, exchanging that value in different ways. And when you start thinking about it like that, Holoride essentially changes the way people will look at rides, at any travel ride. So we're, of course, excited about them. And it's just one of the examples of where you'll see the technology take off really fast.
That's interesting. I like to talk about Holoride to my kids, that during the ride they are my Holoride in the travel. It's like a virtual reality, but in real life.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It was really, really interesting and inspiring. Thank you so much, and good luck for everything.
It was really great having the conversation, and would love to follow up and have you visit us at Elrond. So awesome.
I'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.